I think I can just start with the introduction here. So welcome to our May BIM CPH webinar. For those of you who don't know, BIM CPH is a volunteer group of people in the Danish building industry who are interested in BIM and digitalization and other new technologies. And we try to hold these webinars and hopefully some physical events in that Blocks Hub. And just you can keep an eye on our LinkedIn site to get an idea of what's going on in our group. And I'd just like to say thanks to our steering committee. We're a group from all different sectors in the Danish construction industry and education. And we try to put together events like this on a regular basis when we find interesting topics and interesting presenters. So in the future, we will be having some events on BIM for Anlæg or BIM for infrastructure. And after the summer vacation, we'll have some IoT and smart buildings as well as augmented reality. And we're looking to hold another BIM Beers event before the summer vacation. The last couple have been a big success after Corona to get people out and talk to each other about technology, BIM, and other topics within the construction industry. So let's like to say thanks to our sponsors of BIG, Zealand, Zublin, Room, Art, Arcatima, NCC, Blocks Hub, Alex Polson, and Glasshouse. Without them, events like this would not be possible. So today's event, we have award-winning BIM expert from Mace in London, Marzia Bolpagni, and she'll be talking about level of information need, which this will be really interesting. It's also a very new topic. So before I hand it over to Marzia, I'd like to just have Jakob say a few words about the kind of the rules of the webinar today.
Yes, perfect. Thank you, David. Again, like we always do, now it's sixth or stuff like that webinar we have. So when we have webinars, I will take care of all the technique. So chat, Q&A, question and answer and stuff like that will be controlled by me, and we will ask people to wait with the questions to after the talk. You can write the question in one of the possibilities down under, and then I will just invite you in when the talk is finished. So we can let Marzia talk when she have it. So I think that's pretty much it. I'll try to respond to what you are sending me. So Marzia, that's for me.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. Can you see the screen? Can you hear me fine? Yes. I hope that everything
is perfect.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much for the invitation. I had the opportunity to visit Denmark several times, and I hope in the future also to meet you as a committee also in person. And thank you also again for the invitation to Lone Sun in particular. Okay, so something about myself. I think that as has been said, I work as head of BIM International and Mace. Mace, as I will say in a second, is a construction and consultancy company working at international level. And I'm also involved in other activities, and in particular on standardization, where I work on the BIM standard at European and international level as well. And you can see here I'm also involved on other initiatives. Also assistant editor of the BIM dictionary that also is translated also in Danish. So I really advise everyone, if you don't know about the BIM dictionary, also to have a look and to check also the terms in Danish. Yeah, I also have a private life because people say, you do a lot of things, but I really have a passion about, driving the industry to the next level. So something about my Mesa, if you've been in London, probably you saw the Shard from Renzo Piano, the London Eye. Those are all projects where Mesa has been leading, also the recent Dubai Expo. And our purpose is to redefine the boundaries of ambition as many companies. Also, our focus is to pursue a sustainable world. So for us, of course, is a high priority, and to grow together and also to deliver distinctive value to our clients. As I said, we do consultancy and construction, but also we develop and operate. And stayed across 5 different iteration hubs. And in particular, I work in the consultancy side of the business. Let's move to the main part of the presentation that is regarding the level of information need. So I don't know if you know the different, let's say, standardization bodies. So at the international level, we have the ISO. And I don't know how many standards do you know about at ISO level regarding BIM. So maybe also if you want to write in the chat how many international standards there are on BIM, if there is anything that comes to your mind. And also there is the SEN, that is the European Committee for Standardization. And both at international level, at European level, there is a committee that is responsible of creation of BIM standards. Okay, but also at the national level, we have different standardization institutes. And in Italy, for example, there is the Italian Standardization Institute. In the UK, there is the British Standardization Institute. And also in Denmark, I don't know if you know, but there is the Danish Standards Institute, where different companies, meet and work together. And in particular, I've been working in the past year with Gunnar Friborg, so maybe you know already him, and has been working with me on the topic of the level of information need. So if you want to know more about BIM standards in general, I'm sure that also in the future he can also give you an in-depth presentation regarding all the BIM standards that are published at European international level regarding BIM. And together with Gunnar, there are also other Danish experts that support the work, and I hope that also you and others will contribute even more to this. Let's now speak about the level of information needs. So when I usually ask people, which is the detail of this door, the LOD of this door, of this space. Even if all of us, we are expert, the work can be, we have different opinions. Sometimes because, for example, in Denmark, you have been having a long time experience in every local standard using your own scale. And in other countries, they have a different scales, different naming. So in 2016, I wrote this article, The Many Phases of LOD. I don't know if you know, where actually I investigated and I show how many different variances there are on this topic of LOD, LOI, level of development, level of detail, level of definition, information level, and so on. So this can be confusing, especially if you work across different countries, because each countries and also each own company, they have their own understanding. And most of the time, those really focus on the geometrical representation, but less on the alphanumerical part. So what happened is that at international level and at European level, we wanted to create a common framework on how we specify our requirements. And you can find the detail of this concept of level of information need initially in this series of standard. It is the ISO 19650 in the different parts. Part 1 is content and principle. Part 2 is in the delivery phase, so design and construction. And then part 3 is on the operational side, what happened after construction. And then at European level, we publish a standard on the level of information need. The number is 17412 part 1, and also has been published also as a Danish standard. So if you go in the website of the Danish standards, you can find this standard also available as a Danish standard, because it's now formally also a Danish standard. And also you can find other material beside this chat. Also in the UK, for example, I've been working in creating a sort of a free guidance that is going to be updated also in the next month. What about the level of information need and in general this concept of LOD? I think that you know that is really, all of us where we were kids, we've been playing this game of putting the right shape in the right hole. And it's really about that. It's really about providing the information that fit for purpose of what the client is asking for, okay? So with the level of information need, we want to define specific requirements so then we receive and we get what we want. But also as designer, if we work with others, with the structure engineer, we want to receive from them what we really need. And so what is important? We want to avoid waste of information, creating overproduction or underproduction of information. Overproduction of information is currently probably you face every day. You receive a model, and the first thing that you need to do is to clean. So if you need to do energy analysis, you need to clean. If you need to do structural analysis, you need to clean. How we can work in a better way in order to avoid this tedious process. It's really about provide the right information at the right time and also enable automatic checking. Because if we say, I want LOD3, okay, how can I check using tools that actually what we receive is actual LOD3 or LOD300 and so on. So we need really to be a little bit more specific and be able to use a digital approach to check automatically the quality. So the level of information need is a framework to define the quality, the quantity, and the granularity of information requirements. And what is really different from the other approach is really to start with the purpose, because you need to specify why you need the information, because we know that if you need to do cost analysis or you need to do thermal analysis, the information that you need, both the alphanumerical information and the geometrical, usually are different. Okay, so we don't want to, we know also that it's required time to produce information, so we want just to produce what is needed. So this is the summary of the framework on the level of information need. You can see here that there are some prerequisites, and then there are the main aspect on the level of information need. So the prerequisite, you need to see, you can see that you need to define why you need information, the different BIM uses. Do you just want to use your information models for visualization? Do you want that to do for clash detection? Do you want to use for cost analysis? Do you want to do for accessibility analysis? What you want to achieve, that is really important, because then is then driving the definition or your level of information need. When you need information, because maybe for the same purpose at different point of time, the information is available in different way, so then you can ask a different granularity of the information, who needs to provide to check the information, and to what object, which object within your breakdown structure the information is associated to. Because we found out that usually this LOD topic is associated or to the entire model or to the components. There is no something in between. But for some disciplines, such as the MEP, most of the time you associate your information at system level, okay? Or maybe to assembly or to component, to parts. And at the beginning of the project, maybe you define your information at element, let's say at building level, so to your building as a whole, or your site, you don't go specific on defining which are the information for each component. So it's really important to define your breakdown and to associate the information requirements to a particular level of the breakdown. Then you have the level of information need framework itself. So you have the geometrical information, alphanumerical information, and documentation. And I will go one by one, providing some information. So regarding the prerequisites, as I say, the purpose, define why you need the information. You can use different sources. One sources can be the BIM Excellence Initiative Model Uses Table that is available for free, where you can find more than 50 different uses of our models. And when different countries, different companies, they separate the project in different milestones. So it's important to agree that it can be a date or it can be a specific phase. And then who is in charge of providing the information, and also the object. You can see here some example you can use, of course. Industry standards or bespoke one is of course better to use industry standards, open standards. Let's start our journey to look at the different components. So the first one is the detail. You can see here that is the same object with the same, let's say, appearance, but the detail here is different. Here is just a void, then you have just a panel, then you start to add more detail, and then you can continue. So it's a continued range, because really you can specify your detail as much as you want based on the different purpose. And a lot of standards in the industry has been really focused on this aspect, on how much details are needed to include in our work. And I know that in Denmark you've been pioneering in creating standard on this. So this is another example. This is another, for example, for heritage. Maybe you want to have a detail of the single bricks, or maybe single cracks, because then you want to understand the deterioration, or if it's an heritage you want to release. So you can specify all the type of detail. And as I will say at the end, we are working on a part 2 guidance in order to provide a sort of decision tree support to user on how to specify these detail in a more standardized way. Because part one, that is the standard that I'm presenting, is regarding to concept and principle regarding to level of information need. And we are working as a group at European level in order to expand this work. Dimensionality, again, information can be a point, can be a line, can be a surface, or can be in 3D, depends on the purpose, especially with infrastructure projects. Sometimes at the beginning you can, identify items as a line. The important thing is parametric, and then you can, of course, compute and extract information from that. Location is absolute or relative. So in this case, do you want to really have the geolocation of the elements, or you just care, for example, that is a boiler is within a space, you don't care about the geolocation of the boiler. So we know that some modeling tools, if you geolocated your project, then automatically can geolocate other items, but then it's important to understand which is the requirements regarding the location. And again, the appearance, you can see here that is the same detail, but is a different appearance. For example, do you want, one color to explain the material, or do you want a symbolic representation for the hot and cold water, for example? Here is another example. You can see exactly the same detail, but the appearance is different. This is important because probably, the designer that are listening, that you need a different effort to, include different kind of textures and so on. So which kind of appearance you want to get, if we know already, then it's helping us to deliver information into the correct way. And the parametric behaviors is really for us to understand how the geometry can be modified and changed. And that is something important because, people has been realized that, sometimes the geometry is fixed and you cannot change later on. So it's important to define the parametric behavior that you want to get. And then the alphanumerical part is, let's say, the easiest one. Is really about the list of the different alphanumerical information, such as the material, the type, the warranty period, file rating, and so on. So it's really about listing the different information that you might need. And then also the documentation. So do you need any, I don't know, based on the purpose, any, let's say, photos, in this case, drawing, schedule, or any sort of building permits in order to fulfill that purpose that is within the information model. Here is then, people say, okay, Marzia, how can I define the level of information need? So this is an approach. You can still define, in an old-fashioned way. So you can really, write in a Word file or in Excel. An example is here. So, during the schematic design, you needed to fulfill the visualization purpose, and then who needs to provide the information? The architect. What do you need? I need the site, the wall, the windows, what you want to be created. And then for each, object, then you start to define, do you need the geometry at all? Yes or no? Do I need information? Yes or no? And then alphanumerical information. So for example, for the visualization, I want just the geometry, how you want that to be, created. And then which information do you need? For example, maybe for visualization, you don't need to have alphanumerical information or documentation, but you want just a simplified volume representing the openings. You want that in 3D. The location is absolute, and the appearance is realistic because you want to do, visualization with the texture of the material. And the parametric behavior in this case is not something relevant. But of course, if you want to be, more advanced, it's better to use a database approach. I'm not selling software myself, but of course, some people ask me which tool can I use. There are tools such as the one that you can see here that are available in the market, and more I hope that is going to come in the market. So this is an example that we created as part of the UK BIM framework. So it's based on Airtable. So you can see for the geometrical information, alphanumerical information, and documentation, the list of the different attributes that you need, which are the maintainable assets, and which are the information that you need for each of them. So then, of course, you can link to your model. This is then is BIMQ, for example, and then you can see that you use a database, and you can define for different milestones, which is the different purposes, what you want to model and what is required, and then you can link, for example, to a different point of time, which are the requirements, and then you can then select those and then to export to inform the production of your models in tools such as Revit, ArchiCAD, or also create export in order to create your rule set in simple BIM or Solibri in order to check the requirements later on. So you can see that it's a more structured and more defined way to define what you need. So then to really avoid creating too much information that maybe is not needed, but is really to be a little bit more, specific. Because we found also that there were starting to be legal claims regarding LOD because it was too generic. So people say, I want, as I was saying before, LOD 300, say, what does it mean? And then when you receive something, say, this is not actually what I wanted. So there was a need really to define a framework that was more precise and also that at the same time was flexible to meet the needs of different purposes. The next steps, so what is next? And maybe some of you say, okay, how can I contribute to myself? Of course, my suggestion is to reach out to your local, in this case, niche Danish expert, in order to understand and to be part of the discussion, because then you can bring your experience and your needs. What we are doing as a group at European level, we are bringing the part 1 of the standard at international level. So we are bringing it at international level to become an ISO standard. And then at the same time, we are working on part 2, that is a guidance for application with different examples, images, so then to help the user to even more adopt this concept on the level of information need in the day-to-day project. And also we are working with the expert at European level on creating a data schema, so then it can be implemented in software as well as in an open approach. So we are working with an expert that are creating the data templates. Again, if you are interested on that, we are happy to have your contribution as well. I want to just to add something to my presentation, I also chaired the European group AC3 on the modeling standards, and in the past years we have been evaluating how many standards on BIM has been published. And you can see here the evolution on time. And by the way, we're going to present the results. So it's a group exercise. You can see all the experts involved here. There is no one from Denmark. So some of you, if you like also to contribute to this group of volunteering, I know that we are contributing already to all groups, but we are open to evaluate also other volunteers. This group is understanding the different standards that are at the moment working on BIM and how to make it usable for the normal user, because how they can understand and to use. You can see here that in the recent years, there's been really an increasement of the standards on different topics. And if you're interested in follow, my activities on LinkedIn, feel free also to add me on social media, because we're going to present this in July. And the event will be free for everyone, if I'm not wrong, on the 25th of July. And we created interactive dashboards in order that you can select your role, for example, as a project manager. And then here is explained which are the high priority standards that you should, as a, in this case, project manager or designer, know about BIM. And then you can select the different, let's say, priorities, but also regarding the different, understanding the links between standards, how they are relating one to each other. If you are reading a standard, which other standard you should be aware of, which are the mandatory links. And this work will be available for free as dashboards. So we're going to publish in the next month, and it will be good also to get your feedback about usability and if it's useful. So I'm happy when published to inform the community and to get your feedback for improvement. I already presented this work some weeks ago to the German community, and they were really interested in say how we can link with our German standards and so on, because it's quite difficult then to make it clear. And you will find work such as like this to understand how also BIM standards are related to other domains, for example, facility management, project management, ICT and so on. So you can see that it can be quite an interesting landscape to understand. So watch this space for this work. We are happy as a group to get your feedback and involvement. And you can see that the number of standard, probably some of you don't know, but also IFC is an international standard on BIM. And we have really more standards that are going to be published also in the next future. And one of those is the one that I mentioned you regarding the level of information needed, that part 1 is already available. And that is everything about myself. I wanted you know, to give an introduction, and of course I'm available to answer to any question that you might have regarding this topic on the level of information need. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Marzia. Nobody have actually asked anything, so you.
Okay, so they're quiet.
So the question is open now. Anybody?
Yeah.
Just...
In the meantime, I can also open maybe the interactive work that I was mentioning, so that I can show you, for example, in the UK BIM framework. Let me see if you can see. In the UK BIM framework website. So this is regarding the standard on the level of information need. We have different resources, and there is also information requirements database that is being created together also with a very good expert that is Emma Hooper, that also works in the UK. And you can see here, for example, for alphanumerical information, here there is the description of how you can use this information. And you can see that there is the different attributes, but is linked to different purposes of what you want to get. That is important. We also link to classification that of course is based on the UK, but I know that in Denmark you have your own classification systems. So of course this is specific for a market, but can be replicated of course as an approach. And then who needs to provide the information, when they needed to provide the information. And then you can add even more information regarding, you know, which type of property it is and different metadata and so on. So then you can see that you started, then if you define this, then it is easier than when you receive the information to check that what you get is compliant with your requirements. For the geometrical case, for example, this, it was, they wanted the purpose is regarding operation. In this case is an extreme case that they didn't want to have any geometry. They just really wanted to have alphanumerical information. But of course, each case is different. So you need really to understand what is needed. In this case, for example, for the purpose of simulation and logistics, you might need to, sorry, which was the purpose? It was from, yeah, logistics and sequences. Yeah. That line, you might want to have the, you know, simplified detail. You want information to be in 3D, absolute, and color of the material and so on. So that is, I hope that this was, you know, I just did a screenshot, but I just wanted also to show the interactive one.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We have a question from Angus. I'll just allow him to talk. Oh, he was very now I'm trying. Angus, could you just? Yeah.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Fantastic. Yes, Maria, I'm just asking a question. We're currently writing up a smart infrastructure or smart campus standard for our vocational education organisation. And one thing we're looking to do is to link BIM and I guess the level of detail and level of information we should really look to capture. We link it across into that standard, but not regurgitate what is already best practice out in an industry. And I was wondering what out of the list of standards that you have there are probably the better ones to reference as a good reference point for our consultants and contractors working on these projects and embedding smart technologies.
Yeah, so my suggestion is, of course, to, you know, you can use the level of information need framework, you know, of course, because I'm promoting this standard, but is mainly as an approach at the moment. So you start in defining which are the different purpose and goals that you want to reach using your, your information models. And probably you notice that I'm not using BIM models as a term, but I use information model because this is the new term in the new standard ISO 9650. So the term BIM model is not used anymore, but we speak about information model is a wider concept. And anyway, apart from that, yeah, my suggestion is really, first starting defining what you want to achieve for different phases as a map that, and starting to understand with your clients which are their priorities and so on. Then regarding the geometry, there are already, good standards that at the moment are available. You can, of course, relate it also to the Danish one for sure, in order to explain, how much detail you want to put for particular elements, if you're really, interested on that in order to guide the market. But maybe there are some aspects maybe that currently in the standard are not mentioned, that maybe you can then, improve if needed. But of course, if you deviate from a standard, then it's important to make it really clear, because if you use the Danish standard for defining the different geometrical aspect and you want to deviate, then you need to make it explicit. What instead I suggested you to spend more time is to the list of alphanumerical information, because that most of the time is really bespoke. Based on the clients and their maturity as well, what they want to do. For example, if you want to use sensors, which are the attributes that you need in order to capture the sensoring information? Do you want to do this for facility management? Which are the different information? And what will be good, moving forward is that those lists of attributes, let's say at least the most common on the, most used will be developed by expert group. So for example, think about the lighting group, or I know that, for example, acoustics group at European level, they are defining which are the set of requirements that actually, if you do, acoustic analysis using BIM, those are the parameters that you need also to include and to use. So at the moment, we don't have this sort of, for each uses to have the list of a parameter already made, unfortunately, but it's something that in the future, and probably you also as a group can work together, say, okay, based on our experience, these are the most common, let's say, alphanumerical information for those particular uses for this particular point of time. So my answer to you is really, start with what you have already, and then create bespoke information to really avoid the overproduction of the information. So, we know that when you have too much information, then it's difficult to navigate and to maintain also those information in the long term. I hope that was useful as an answer.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Perfect. Then we have another question from the chat, which have no mic, so I'll try to read it up. In Denmark, we have packages of information for different LOD that is somehow standard according to our normal architect work in the project. How do you price that information delivery? Was the question.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not an expert on the Danish market myself, so probably you can, better the answer. But again, I mean, usually the price, is quite an interesting one, because if some companies, they are at the beginning of their journey and they don't have all the processes and the automation, for them it really takes time to create the information to a certain particular, output, to create a particular output. There are other companies that instead they automated their processes, they have their own libraries, and they create, automation. So for them is really not really time consuming to deliver to a certain, package or a certain, type of complexity. So I think that the way that also you price is also about how difficult it is for you as a company to achieve that output. Most of the time, of course, is the more detail that you include, the more information, alphanumerical information usually is the higher price, because you spend more time to add, for example, the texture. You need to spend more time to add, alphanumerical information and so on, or to add a classification or to map to particular classification. But that might not be the case, because if you're an advanced company and you're standardized and so on, then you find your different workflows, you have your scripts and so on, that maybe the price can be also the same, and then you can be more, let's say, competitive in the market. So it's not always that the price is linked to the, let's say, number of details or the information that you include. That is at least my experience.
Thank you. I think, oh, there's another one here in the, I can just try to make him as a talk, just have to find the name. Here we are. Mohammed, you have a question?
Hello, yes, can you hear me?
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the ISO series and in the AN 17412, I would just like to emphasize a little bit on the term of BIM use and purposes. Are they the same thing when we're talking about the level of information need, or there is a difference between BIM uses and purposes in this context?
No, thank you. It's a very good question. So purpose is a little bit, wider, let's say, as a term. This is the reason why it's been used. In the industry, because also in the industry, there are a lot of different terms. There is BIM uses, there is, use case, there is model uses, and so on. So different countries, different companies, they have different terms. And most of the time, the let's say the purpose is linked really to the use of the model itself. But as you probably know, the topic of BIM in general is moving away of just speaking about the 3D and model related. So there is a why we use a purpose that can be wider. So purpose is also depending on the, as I show you in the example that I was showing before, purpose can be very generic, such as scheduling, or it can be cost analysis. So then you can even redefine even more and to go in a particular detail. So I will not say that, model uses is equal to purpose one-to-one, but, if it is easier, usually I use as an example in my presentation, because then people understand what it's about. But purpose as, can be really generic. And I don't know if you know about the ISO 19650, let's say, type of approach. And we really speak about information management when using BIM. So we try to avoid speaking about, as I say, BIM model or BIM process or BIM whatever, to put BIM in front of everything. So is the reason why purpose has been chosen. But the point is really to define why you need the information. That is the main thing. You needed to explain that.
Okay, thank you for your answer. So I understand from you is, for me, it's really, I would like to go just a little bit deeper. So can we use BIM uses as in the part of purpose? Yeah, that's it. We can use it as a purpose.
You can use for sure. You can use it as a starting point, and then if you see that it works, is okay. If you want, you can be more specific, or yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Perfect. I think that was the last one. So maybe, David, you will just have the last words.
Sure. Let me just share my screen again. So thank you so much for presenting today. That was really incredible to see all the different standards in one place on the screen at the same time. Really makes you realize how complex this world has been. We really hope to hear more from you in the future, and you're more than welcome to come back and present again. I think it was really interesting to hear about. So just once again, thanks to our sponsors. And for those of you who don't follow us, you should come into or join our LinkedIn page, our LinkedIn site, and you can hear more events like this in the future. And we'll be trying to hold one more before the summer break, and hope to see you again there. So hope to hear from you guys soon. Thanks for joining in today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.